My name is Miranda Schoenbrunn, and I work at the Consortium for Interdisciplinary Research, also known as CIR, which houses the Berkeley Center for the Study of Religion. And I work on communications, and I'm also going to be coordinating the graduate student affairs for the DE and the Study of Religion. We have with us today the chair of the DESR and BCSR co-founder, Mark Csikszentmihalyi. And he's from the Department of East Asian Languages and Cultures. We also have with us the current BCSR director, David Marno from the English department. And also joining us are my CIR colleagues, Kai Tu Nguyen, associate director of CIR, and fellow CIR coordinator, Patty Dunlap. I thought we would start off with a short video. It's about 2 minutes with Mark and our other BCSR co-founder, Jonathan Sheehan. And it's really just discussing studying religion at Berkeley more generally.
Public universities like Cal think about religion. I mean, the university is, on the one hand, one of the great oldest institutions in the world. It's been around for 800 years. Has thought about religion for many of those centuries. In the last 100 years, religion has played a more complicated role in public universities. And at Cal, there was at some point a decision not to have religion included as a major topic of study. There's a major theological Center for Theological Study just up the hill. And the sense was, I think, for many major research universities, that religion was a topic that was best left to others. I think in the past, and Mark, you should jump in whenever, but I think in the past 20 years or so, as religion has become a really important public subject for conversation, both in political terms and social and cultural terms, it's become increasingly clear that as a public university, this is something that we would be doing a disservice to our students and to the public at large if we didn't dedicate some significant resources to its study. And so we're delighted to be able to start this now. It feels a little late in the game, but there's some advantages, I think, to starting this project now at a moment when religion is so forward in our everyday public life, in our everyday politics. I think it gives a certain kind of power to the study that 50 years ago might well have felt like studying something which is just about to go away, and now we know it's not.
So we hope you enjoyed that. As I said, with us today are Mark and David, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn things over so that everyone can introduce themselves.
Hi, welcome everybody, and it's so nice to have you here and to see you all, some familiar faces and others who are new to me. My name is David Marno. I'm a professor of English, and I teach primarily Renaissance-related topics in the English department, as well as devotional poetry and devotional literature in general. I'm also a board member of the DE. But the primary reason I'm here, or the main hat that I'm wearing today, actually is as co-director of the BCSR, the Berkeley Center for the Study of Religion, which is the fruit of the conversation from which you just saw that short excerpt, which I think dates back to 2017, maybe, or at least that short recording. So this was Jonathan Sheehan and Mark Csikszentmihalyi, who founded the Center for the Study of Religion, whose mission has been ever since to connect the dots, essentially, here on campus, where the dots are people who work on any religion-related topic, including faculty and students, graduate students. One of the most interesting experiences doing BCSR is to realize that those dots are quite often hidden, in the sense that virtually everybody, it seems to me, is thinking about topics that are related to religion. So sometimes we have to seek out the people who work on religion and enable those kinds of conversations between people who actually do totally work on comparable things, and they just don't know of each other's work because they are separated by disciplines and departments. So our main mission is really to make those connections, given that we don't have a religious studies department. One of the reasons I mention all of this is because my task here is to talk a little bit about the relationship between BCSR, the Center for the Study of Religion, and the DE. And I should just say that, well, first of all, the relationship is friendly, enthusiastic. BCSR is very enthusiastic about the DE finally being launched. We are really, really happy that that from now on, it's not just events and programming. And, we have at the BCSR a workshop for graduate students, but we haven't had really a program for graduate students. We could not give a diploma to graduate students. Like, one of the most exciting things about the DE is that from now on, graduate students will get, paperwork about studying religion here at Berkeley. So we are very enthusiastic about this, and we are trying to support the DE as much as possible by encouraging our affiliate faculty to work with the DE, to work with the students in the DE. But one thing that I wanted to mention is that we have at the BCSR a large number of faculty affiliated with the center. However, the DE is going to be another thing that we very much hope will help us sort of discover the people who work on religion, including students as well as faculty. So we have been encouraging faculty to really find the students who work on religion-related topics and apply for the DE, or just to get in touch and get involved in events that we organize on campus. But I do want to say that the flip side of this is also important. That is to say, if you know other students, or if you know a faculty that you would like to work with and who you think is working on religion-related topics, maybe because you're working on that topic and you would like to have that person on your committee, but they are not yet associated with the DE and or with BCSR, let them know, ask them, put us in touch with those people. I'm so sorry, I'm going to do this because I'm actually in one of my departmental spaces, so I have to wear a mask here. Yeah, I think I'll just stop there, and I know that Mark also wanted to add a few words. So I'll stop there, but I stay here for the entire meeting, and I'm very happy to answer any questions that you might have about the program.
Thank you, David. Yeah, and I also wanted just to quickly introduce Kai Win, who's the director of the Center for Interdisciplinary Research, which is the kind of administrative group that, among other things, administrates some of the designated emphases, which I'll talk a little bit more about what that is, but it's kind of a unit that's in Stevens Hall, in the most interesting office on campus, I have to say. And Kai is administers it, and Patty Dunlap has been with it for a while and runs the critical theory designated emphasis, and her experience in that has been of great help to us in fashioning new designated emphasis. Miranda Schonbrunn is going to do what Patty does essentially for RDE. As far as I understand, I'm not sure we've exactly worked everything out, but she's going to be the main person that people administrating or applying to the DE will be dealing with, and will also see you through that process. So all three of them have worked incredibly hard to get this up and running, and I think that if it succeeds, it'll be more due to their work than anyone on the faculty, honestly. So a designated emphasis is basically a PhD minor. So on your final diploma, as this says, there'll be a designation. You'll have the PhD in X, your home department, and a designated emphasis in Y. And that is kind of, I guess, like what you would call a minor if you're talking about an undergraduate education, but for a PhD, that's what this designated emphasis is. And since we're the currently the only kind of curricular home that has the word religion on it. Part of this is to create a type of, credentialing in some ways, but we didn't want to just do that. We also wanted to create a kind of DE that's very specific to the Berkeley kind of the what we have here at Berkeley, which we feel is fairly special. So let me explain kind of what the goals were that we were trying to reach in designing this. So to create a kind of cross-disciplinary space, we've always had a number of faculty and students working on the topic of religion. But as I said, perhaps because of the presence of the Graduate Theological Union, perhaps because of some notion of the separation of church and state, there never really was a home, a programmatic home for the study of religion. And so we want to create a space for that that will kind of complement the Center for the Study of Religion, which has a very robust program, both supporting research and bringing people to campus and encouraging kind of graduate study through the creation of special programs for graduate students, and so creating or fostering this community and creating a kind of way for graduate students to who work in different departments on religion to come together and to share ideas over the long term was really kind of one of the goals that we've all at the Center for the Study of Religion. And working with David and Karen, we've been able to bring this to fruition here. So finally, the last goal, and I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this one just to give you an idea of what the kind of some of the guiding concepts behind the design of this special curriculum we have is we wanted to articulate kind of a cross-disciplinary approach. And I want to distinguish that from the way that religion is usually the way that the study of religion usually expresses itself in American universities and colleges. Many of the private universities have religion departments or religious studies departments that began in the 1800s as Bible departments. My first teaching job was at a place called Davidson College, which is a liberal arts college that has a religious studies department, but that department started as the core of that college in the 1800s when it was a Presbyterian seminary. And then from a seminary, it changed to a Presbyterian college. And eventually, in the middle of the 20th century, it changed from Bible to religion. And the department's name changed from Bible to religion, and from religion very recently to religious studies. And so that's a kind of evolution that's happened quite a bit. And if you look at the curriculum at a place like Davidson College, it still begins with the study of scripture, and it begins with a kind of making sure that people are literate in the Bible, which is not something bad, but in a way, the way it's structured still means certain survivals, and the categories that are used in the, even in talking about what the mission of the department is, still will makes reference to creeds and things like that. So it's a certain way of looking at religion that comes out of theology. Another way that you'll see at places like Indiana University or the University of California in Santa Barbara is you'll see that these were departments of religion or religious studies that began in the 1960s in a kind of at a moment when comparative religion was very fashionable, and as a result, they have a kind of that reflects the kind of phenomenological commitments of that period. And so what they're really, you know, they'll have maybe one or two people who do that kind of theology training, but then most of the other people are in, you know, their job is to teach the religion of X or the religion of Y or other places in the world. Often those places include South Asia or East Asia. And part of that has to do with the particular types of funding and grants from foundations that were available in the 1960s. So what we're trying to do is not duplicate those models. That is, we don't want to recreate the kind of structures, and with those, the kind of pre-commitments and suppositions that those structures entail in doing this. So when Jonathan Sheehan said in that brief interview you saw, he said, though we're doing this late in the game, I guess my idea here is that we really don't want to play the same game, actually. That what we want to do is create a kind of framework for talking about religion, which is closer in some sense to the kind of questioning that you'll find in kind of the critical religion kind of movement in some sense. Not that that should be our banner either, but rather to kind of take apart that kind of history and look at it critically. And so that's one of the reasons why we called, instead of a religion designated emphasis, it's a designated emphasis in the study of religion, to try to also look at the study of religion critically as we're looking at the phenomenon of religion. And so that's, I think that's part of it. There's a piece I wrote on decentering the study of religion that you can find on my academia.edu page if you want to kind of get into a little bit of the history of why there was no Department of Religion at Berkeley, then how in the 1960s some of these kind of phenomenologically oriented scholars of religion criticized that and said we should develop this type of department like they have at Santa Barbara, and then kind of why we're trying to do something somewhat different from that here at Berkeley now. So just to give you a general overview of kind of the history of it and how our feeling that we want to include a kind of cross-disciplinary approach to the study of religion, including both social scientific and humanistic perspectives, is that was what we kind of wanted to outline here. More practically, though, you're probably also interested in the specifics of the courses you have to take, how to apply. And so I'm going to turn this now back to Miranda, who is going to go over kind of some of the details and fine print.
Very interesting, and I think really gives a lot of great context to the program and how history has led us to this moment. So thank you for that. Okay, so as Mark said, we do have our course requirements. There are 3 core courses. So that's methods in the study of religion, histories in the study of religion, and local approaches to the study of religion. And then there's also one elective course that you will be taking as a requirement if admitted to the DE, that will come from a pre-approved list of courses that we will be generating every semester. So these can all be found on the BCSR website, the courses that we're offering in the fall. And I can say that we are offering the histories and local approaches courses in the fall, and we are planning on offering the methods course in the spring. And so if you want to read any of the descriptions of the courses and get more information about who's teaching them, the times, and just things like that, you can look on the BCSR website under the designated emphasis page on the dedicated courses page. And if nobody else has another comment about the courses, I'll move on to the requirement for doctoral and qualifying exam committees. Okay, great. So for another requirement for the DE is that you must have on the qualifying examination committee a representative of the DESR, and must have on the dissertation committee a representative of the DESR. And as we have mentioned previously, we are currently growing our list of faculty affiliates for the DESR. We currently have about 16 faculty members from across the arts and humanities. And even at this very moment, we are growing that list so that there are many options and many departments of faculty that you can work with. And they're really excited to create this space and to have these classes with so many students from different disciplines to encourage these kinds of conversations and connections. So we're very excited about our affiliated faculty. So if there are any questions or discussion points that you'd like to bring up or speak with Mark and David about, please go ahead and speak out. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, if you do have any other questions, please don't hesitate to email us. My email is mschonbrun@berkeley.edu, and more general questions can go to info.bcsr@berkeley.edu, and you can find that on our website as well. So thank you all so much again, and we hope that you will consider applying and that we'll be in touch soon. So thank you. And just as a reminder, the applications are due on Tuesday, June 1st.
Thank you. It was great to
Great.
see everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So nice to meet you.